Taraji's almost out of acting, and Colman Domingo is taking a different approach. Looks like the color purple is looking more like the color green. Fendi, like the bag. This is the I Refuse podcast. It's Mr. Fox, the I Refuse podcast. I'm back literally days before Jesus' birthday. I had to come up on here and talk to y'all for a bit because everybody seems to be dousing themselves in flames over the Taraji thing, her sharing her perspective and people connecting the timing of it to Oprah and what's Oprah doing, and everybody's bias against Oprah's coming up into the room, and everybody's being these body language experts when they were on top of the Empire State Building. Now, when I tell you, I feel like this Panasonic has really shown and revealed to the rest of us more and more. Those people that were the ones in school that got their assignments returned face down. All right, so if you've been living under a rock, living in Amish country, living on a ship in the middle of nowhere, during the press junket that the actors tend to go on for movies, some clips have come up where Taraji P Henson is being interviewed various places. And during one of her many stops, she was being interviewed by a Black woman. And she went into this whole thing about how, when it was time for the Cookie spinoff, nothing was happening, and she fired her whole team, and she was just like, I don't get it. Like, Cookie's at the top of the fashion game. She's very impactful. She's essentially hotter than fish grease at this point. Things are not coming together the way that they should. So she fired her whole team. Didn't know that. I knew that there was some talk about a possible Cookie spinoff years ago, but I didn't know she fired her whole team. Now, mind you, that was the role that got Taraji P Henson a Golden Globe Award for lead actress in I believe, a drama. That's a big deal. So another clip came up where she was at another place, and that was the clip that was at the forefront, where she went into a rather emotional diatribe about, you put so much into your craft, you put so much into, your work, and you're barely making $100,000 a role. Now, this is kind of an addendum to what she has said on the talk years ago about, people were under the assumption that she was that actors make a lot of money. And this is before the strike that happened this year. She was like, I make X amount, but that's not my take home. Uncle Sam gets half of that, then whatever's left goes to my team. Now, you got to keep in mind that while I'm on set, that takes me off the market for any other opportunities. Doing that for about 3 months, my flat fee is about $150,000, probably at the most. I think in her example, she said $100,000. Now, after her team gets her cut, she still has to cover her own bills, cover her son's education, the day-to-day, month-to-month responsibilities, personal responsibilities to sustain her lifestyle. So here we are, fast forward in 2023, and she essentially, I don't want to say ramps it up, but she essentially reiterates that same point, and she goes on to say, you haven't seen me for X amount of years, and the last movie that I did was, before whatever was Proud Mary, which I don't think a lot of people went to go see, but it made me pause for a second where I was just like, now that I think about it, I haven't seen her before The Color Purple, as far as like a movie, since what was it? What Women Want or something. It was cute, but when you think about the totality of her career, she got the Curious Case of Benjamin Button, what, back in 2008, 2009, right? Now, mind you, if I was just to go off of her first major role, movie role being Baby Boy, that's about 7 or 8 years. But there's also a little bit of TV that she's done, a couple of guest spots. I believe she had a leading role in a Lifetime movie about Tiffany Rubin. About little things here and there. But she's not, although she has continuously worked, I wouldn't say it was steady. You know what I mean? Like, Empire ran for a little bit. That kind of went down in flames because of Jesse's thing. But in the pandemic, and we're about 4 years into this thing, you haven't really seen her in a whole lot of stuff. And it makes you wonder, what the hell is going on? And then, there's this whole conversation on the timeline, on the Bird app, where it's like people are continue to question her range, which is funny because she's done a wide range of roles. Yet you have people out here that are showing themselves not to have range in what they watch. So here you have Taraji P Henson that has been, The Color Purple is about to come out in 2 days. She's done action movies. She's done biopics. She's done a couple of those. She's done drama, comedy, period pieces. Let's see what else. She's done thrillers. She's done both on the big screen and the small screen. She's done dramas. She's done a couple of Tyler Perry's movies. What else has she done? A wide range of movies. But a lot of people will only remember her from, The Color Purple, Hustle and Flow, Empire, Baby Boy. But they'll never think about, oh, she's actually worked in big budget movies, across from Brad Pitt. She's worked with John Singleton. She's worked with Lee Daniels. She's worked with Tyler Perry. She's worked with international directors and producers. Yet people only remember, the 3 or 4 movies that I mentioned. And go to the Bird app and say, oh, well, it's time we discuss her range. The range has been there in front of you. And, it's well beyond, Hidden Figures, which was a really great movie, that she showed us a wide range in that movie. And it's unfortunate that even with all this evidence and all this in front of you the last 20, 25 years, that people can't help but kind of attempt to downplay or minimize your talent. Now, Taraji P Henson is a DC native. Also, Taraji P Henson classically trained. This isn't somebody that had been working at the telephone company for 10 to 15 years, walked into her first audition and was like, I got it. There's a lot more to her than that. Now, a lot of people, when they look at Empire and they look at Hidden Figures, they look at Baby Boy, they think, oh, well, she's just that urban, loud, ratchet chick. And it's just like, she could be a lot of things that calls for the character to be that. But go and look at The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. Even go look at the Tiffany Rubin story in Lifetime. And even the 1 or 2 seasons she was on the television show with the Caviezel guy that played in Passion of the Christ, I believe. And the other guy with the glasses. Even when she was on, she had a bit part as Loretta Devine's daughter on the lawyer show, the Eli show that was on Fox for a season. And you got to remember, she went from playing supporting roles to being the sole female lead, leading a cast. When Hollywood wasn't giving her a lot of opportunities and Tyler Perry was giving her opportunities, she took it and ran with it. I can do bad all by myself, even given the formulaic material or the storyline. She ate that role up. But, those of us that are out here girl, you're working, you're getting paid, and you're doing both during the pandemic. What is there to complain about? Well, this is what is being offered. And then I sat back and I was like, this is a classic example of just not being in total control of your career. Yeah, when the Cookies spinoff was not happening and the material just was not a reflection of what you thought the character should be, after not only making history, but also making Cookie Line a star of the show. And she fired your whole team. That takes balls. I commend her for that. However, I had to sit back and I was like, if you're only making at the most 100 to 150,000 a role, and this is during a time when Viola Davis got on stage and was, after she got one of her, I believe an Emmy, one of her Emmys for How to Get Away with Murder. And she made that speech about, there's a line, and over there, I see all these faces that don't look like mine. You know the speech. I had to think, what's keeping Taraji from having more control in making executive decisions? When she was talking about the pay, I thought, who's to say that you can't negotiate for probably a smaller flat rate out front for, an addition of a percentage of the revenue? Nobody's saying 5%, 10%, but maybe 1%. I mean, if you're the lead, you are leading a cast. Who's to say you can't do what, Gerard Butler's doing or Scarlett Johansson's doing? unless, there are people in your ear from your team, like in your ear telling you, advising you against it, or, there's something inside of you that's like, we're not getting a lot of opportunities. So let me, be careful with this, not to rock the boat too much. And which is fair because until you sign that contract, they could easily go with somebody else. Like they tell actors and actresses, especially black ones, that all the time. Oh, well, we decided to go with, a Latino direction or Spanish direction. And you got up to the point where you were in the running. It happened. So, there was a lot to take away and a lot to unpack from Taraji P Henson's experience at this point in her career. And then also, the timing of it where it made people look at Oprah weird. And I went on the podcast this week and I was just like, Oprah, just because she's listed as a producer, which more or less makes her an investor, at the very least using her name to get, doors to open to get this thing on the screen, had you guys under the impression that Oprah didn't, it was up to Oprah to get more pay for the actors and actresses. It was like, I don't think that's how that works. Like we were just off of the heels of a writer's strike, an actor's strike. And somewhere in the sauce, it can be said 10 toes down that the reason why actors and writers strike is because studios are not willing to pay them enough. Also, looking for a way to make more money off of their likeness by way of AI. In there, when it comes to pay and contracts and negotiations, it's between the actor and their team, or the actress and their team, and the studios. Just like it's between the directors and the producers and the studios. Oprah over here probably could have suggested some things, but the decision is ultimately up to the studio, who is more than likely putting up the bulk of the financing. And the production company as well, on how much the person gets paid. And the actor and the actress has to agree to it. Then you go a little bit further. In the throes of the storm, where y'all were thinking, Oprah ain't shit. There was a clip circulating where Oprah was talking about how much she was offered and she accepted for her role in the original Color Purple, the movie in 1985. Barely $25,000. Has gone on to say many, many times over the past 40 years that I would have worked for a nickel or a quarter because I was just that grateful. And y'all took that as she was shading Taraji. But y'all couldn't even produce a postmark or a date as to when she said that. But I see how y'all work. Y'all are really crafty at trying to, spin a narrative that satisfies your bias, but that's for another day, another time. Oprah isn't part of that whole conversation. Like I said, she could suggest it, but y'all just swear, and I don't really go for Oprah a whole lot. I'm still side-eyeing her from, Michael Jackson. But it helps to know a little bit of something of doing research and knowing about business and contracts. Um, y'all even went so far as to all of a sudden be body language experts, repeatedly reviewing the short clip of the cast and Oprah on top of the Empire State Building in the dead middle of December, windy and cold in New York City. Y'all were like, oh well, you see how she's not really making eye contact or acknowledging Taraji as she's walking over, and Taraji's looking down, and yada 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 yada. And I'm just like, if anything, Oprah will always be supportive. And those of us that have been outside since for the past 40 years knows how much the color purple means to her. Now, granted, she's in an entirely different world from the rest of us. And that doesn't, none of this absconds her from any idea that we have or any perception that we have that she can be a little bit shady or a little shrewd. A lot of us out here that are of the real world but know that you kind of have to be that way in business, especially when you're a woman, even more so when you're a Black woman. And when you know where Oprah comes from. So I'm not going to lean too heavy on Oprah Winfrey. So, Taraji came out and made a post, a follow-up post, being even more thankful towards Oprah, and Oprah kind of clarifying some things, not that she needed to, because those of us said no, and those of us that are not so, what's the word? I wouldn't say very sensitive, but are very protective of, the color purple. How this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. This could be your moment, to really capitalize off of this. And yet, this is what you're doing, Taraji, which can take away the magic, which is like, it's not that deep. And quiet as it's kept, we're not that far removed from Monique having said the same thing. And this is not new. But what's the next step? Are we going to actually band together and go to the unions and go to the studios? Or are we going to go the Colman Domingo route, where we are so confident in our abilities and we are so confident in our catalog that we make a massive general executive decision to cease auditioning for roles. So Colman Domingo, who is also in The Color Purple as Mr., was recently interviewed by let's see what we have here. He was recently interviewed by the New York Times. And there's a particular part of the article that I'm going to read to support what I'm about to say. Filmmakers responded to his growing confidence and the roles grew too in well-received and well-reviewed films like If Beale Street Could Talk, which was in 2018, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom in 2020, and Zola in 2021. But Domingo eventually decided that if he wanted to be a leading man, he had to treat himself like one and cease auditioning. I became an actor that was offer only probably sooner than the industry thought I should have, he said of the risky move. But I decided I have a body of work. You can go and look at it. You can ask other directors about me, and you can make me the offer or not. Only once did Domingo break his rule to audition for a director friend who would not cast him. I was shocked because I allowed myself to do that again. Then it didn't yield the results that I wanted, Domingo said. It broke something in our friendship because I thought, no, you have to be my advocate. Now, at first thought, I was like most of y'all, where I was just like, dang, that comes off pretty entitled and arrogant. Then I took a step back and was like, if you want to change the tide in this long-standing history, between Black creatives and the powers that finance the films and the movies and the TVs and all, the shows and stuff. And, you have this history where we're only being offered what I would call like oatmeal type of roles. The roles that are kind of teetering between stereotypical and one-dimensional and not anything of impact. The stories are formulaic. The story, the overall movie has no climax or character development, and it's more of the same. So when you have like a Colman Domingo, and you have an Angela Bassett, and you have a Taraji P Henson, who over the course maybe of like 5 or 10 years to 15, 20, 25 years, that have shown you a wide range of performances and a wide range of movies, showing you action and crime and noir and thriller and horror and all this kind of stuff and suspense. I have nothing but respect for Colman Domingo for making that decision, because here you have Colman Domingo, who is not only in movies but has done plays and you can tell by the way he carries himself that he's just not another good-looking Black guy on film or movies or whatever. It's, while the nature of the industry and the game that is movies and television shows and documentaries and all that stuff, in the streaming world, the quantity and the oversaturation is on 1,000%. You have people that come out of nowhere with like 10 or 15 stand-up specials that is the polar opposite of the last 15, 20, 25, 30, 35 years, where people were PR ready, that had a list of acting credits for about 10 or 15 years before getting their first movie role. And, in Taraji's case, she did a lot of bit parts in the early to mid 90s, almost 5 to 10 years before she got her role in Baby Boy. And, back in the 90s, you had, a certain group of Black female actresses and Black male actors that took a lot of television roles, a couple of lines here, a couple of lines there, for many, many years before even getting 5 minutes of screen time on their first movie. But nobody factors that in to the equation. But when you have like a Colman Domingo and a Danielle Brooks who studied at top-notch schools, did the workshops, did, got themselves to a place where they brought something to a character that elevates the character in the movie or the play. And it's something entirely different. Like they bring something entirely different. And then you look at their catalog where, if Bill Street Could Talk is from a James Baldwin novel of the same name, like James fucking Baldwin. Like, I get it. And, I think it takes, the powers that be, that no matter who it is, whether it's, the people that make the screwball comedies or, make some heavy hitting stuff that, has actors that you probably never heard of, or have actors that are some of the finest character actors of this generation. I think it will take them being more conscious of, finest character actors or finest actors, period, also being those that are people of color, that are black, that are African, Nigerian, that bring the same level of skill and nuance and all those things you would want in a performance. And not seeing, black people and people of color as a monolith. And at some point, as an actor and as an actress, if you want things to turn or you want to see a change in the results for your career, it will take making these executive decisions to be like, yeah, we're not going to be auditioning this time because, my catalog speaks for itself. And, you may not get that many opportunities, but, if you are somebody that strives for quality over quantity, then so be it. And it's like at some point, you really, if you want to be respected as not just another actor, because there are a lot of them. And not for nothing, a lot of them are running themselves into the ground. Because, it's a mindset thing. I have to survive. So I feel like I have to take this job. Whereas you could be, like Colman, where it's just like, I want to thrive. So I'm going to, audition, the beginning part of my career. And, those powers that be, directors, producers, or whatever, that call me in for an audition, most likely got a referral from another director or producer that saw me in a play and was so moved that they referred me because, who doesn't talk in Hollywood? And I'm going to nail this audition and get the part. And there's something to be said about when most of your filmography are impactful pieces of work. And it's not just film, but also biopics about very impactful people. And I'm acting across from other impactful actors and actresses who are also black. And it's shot in a style, in a very specific style that you don't always get in other movies. But pay very close attention to my performances. Like, you can definitely go in that direction, Coleman's route. And, there are a lot of people in the comment section that are like, how dare he's not an A-list actor. As if you could quantify a person by that. Like, what's an A-list actor at this point? Because if we're keeping it a buck, that's kind of gone out the window years ago. What the short list of people we've considered A-list are getting older, and the roles are starting to become fewer and far between. And not for nothing, you have like Denzel Washington's son, who used to be a former athlete, who has turned into a mighty fine actor. Now, we could argue and all day long about the idea of him being a nepo baby, but when you go to see a movie with David Washington in it, even though he looks and sounds exactly like his father when you close your eyes, the brother is a mighty fine actor. And he doesn't have like a long catalog of movies, but when you think of Colman Domingo, an actor that has like a short filmography, David Washington has a short filmography, and there's something to be said. I would say there's probably more respectability given to actors and actresses that have a very short filmography, but these are movies and performances with gravitas, and it's certain production and certain directors that pick them. And that's what I think of when, I sat back and I was like, Colman Domingo, that's ballsy, but I respect it. Like, at some point, people are going to have to also move differently when they approach actors and actors with material. It's a rat race, and time is fleeting right now. So the days of the old school days of going from door to door doing auditions for 8 to 12 hours a day, yeah, we're not doing that anymore. At some point in your life, when you're like in your 30s and your 40s, and you get to a point when you know what you bring to the table, and you bring something to the characters that you play, and you're a walking embodiment on film of the material that is on the page. I would be like, I'm not auditioning for this. Call me what you want. But 10, 15 years from now, you'll look back at my catalog and be like, damn, I remember him from all of these movies. And then you look at other actors and actresses' filmography, and you see it's like 3, 4, 5 pages long. And you're like, damn, he did all this? He must be tired. Like 5 or 6 movies in one calendar year. I'd be tired like Taraji too, working like a dog. But for Taraji, it's like at some point you got to speak up more and negotiate more in your favor. It worked for Jason Weaver. They were willing to offer that boy only what, $100,000 for all the work he did as young Simba. Not only as the voice, like the natural voice, but the singing voice. But his mom was like, no, we'll take a lower rate with a percentage of the revenue. And you know, The Lion King, that first one. Yeah, so, you know, when I think of, and I'm about to wrap this up, when I think about Taraji Henson and, you know, other actors and actresses that the pay is just not a reflecting really well of the movies I've done. I think of Jason Weaver, who probably doesn't have to work or act in anything the rest of his life. Because Lion King, back then, is what saved Disney. And you only saw him probably in like 2 or 3 things after that. But you haven't seen anything or heard anything from him as an adult, and that's probably why. So, you know, there's nothing that says that you can't, as an actor or an actress or a personality or a creative, that says you can't fight for yourself. Like, we're all out here in this crazy ass Panasonic trying to make $2 and a chicken biscuit. There's nothing that says you can't negotiate more in your favor. But I can still say that and say, you know, I still respect Taraji P Henson. I'm still not ever going to let Oprah 1,000% off the hook. And I think more people should move like Colman Domingo. Not real early in your career, but definitely after you've built an awareness and a catalog that says, you know, I have about 3 or 4, maybe 6 or more back-to-back once-in-a-lifetime performances and once-in-a-lifetime pieces of work that are not your run-of-the-mill performances or movies. And I am an A-list actor to myself. And, you know, let's not act like this is new. You know, and it's funny because had Colman Domingo been of a different color, they would have been like, oh, wow. They probably would have gave him a round of applause. But because he's not, it's rubbing some of the people in the comment section the wrong way. It's just like, you know, at some point, you know, Hollywood has to rise to the occasion and really expand their horizons as to the range that we possess. And we've been telling them for generations and generations that we are more than the help, we are more than slaves, we are more than poor, sad, downtrodden characters. Like, we have the power and the range to move audiences and make people feel in very rich and diverse ways. And if you need reference material, look at my last 3 or 5 roles in the last 3 or 5 films that I was in. Because I got someplace to be. I got somewhere else to be. And y'all have a good day. So this is Mr. Foxy I Refuse podcast. I will be going to see The Color Purple probably after the new year. And I will more than likely do a review of that as well. So be sure to check out the I Refuse podcast, the YouTube channel where you're seeing this video. We have lots of content here. We also have 5 seasons of the I Refuse podcast where we get your streaming. We have The Usual Suspects in the 2nd season. We've dropped probably about 3 episodes this week already while you've been cooking and prepping for Christmas. Also, I Refuse Podcast After Dark is coming back in January. Link is in the Twitter and the Instagram at I Refuse Podcast, and we will catch you guys later. Fendi, like the bag. This is the I Refuse Podcast.